Daniel drifted through the endless black of space, the hum of his small exploration ship the only sound against the void. Years of training had led him to the edge of the known galaxy, a region so abandoned that even the brightest maps only showed empty stars. He had been warned not to wander here, that the uncharted systems held dangers beyond human imagination. Still, there was something irresistible about the unknown. He had always believed that courage was not the absence of fear, but the will to face it. For weeks, his sensors had detected faint signals, a pulse that seemed deliberate but impossible to trace. Most of his colleagues would have dismissed it as a technical glitch, but Daniel's curiosity refused to let go. Tonight, he would follow the signal. As the ship approached the source, the stars seemed to bend and space itself whispered of something ancient and powerful. His heart raced. He had explored empty moons, asteroid fields, and silent planets, but nothing had ever felt like this. The signal led him to a vast, floating structure, a citadel so massive that even from a distance, it dwarfed planets. Its walls shimmered with strange energy, and its towers twisted upward, reflecting the faint light of distant suns. Daniel felt a chill. The citadel was alive in a way he could not explain, as if it were aware of his presence. It was beautiful and terrifying at once. He hesitated at the docking bay. The automated doors opened slowly, revealing a hallway of polished metal that seemed endless. Light moved along the walls in waves, illuminating intricate carvings that no human hand could have created. Daniel stepped inside, feeling the weight of the unknown pressing down on him. Every instinct screamed caution, but every fiber of his being urged him forward. Then he saw her. At the heart of the citadel, standing on a platform of shimmering light, was a figure that made him stop cold. She was tall, taller than any human, with skin that glowed faintly like liquid silver. Her eyes were vast and luminous, reflecting the stars beyond. Her presence commanded silence, and yet there was a softness, a grace that spoke of wisdom and power intertwined. Daniel felt as though he had stepped into a dream he could never have imagined. Without a word, she looked directly at him. His mind raced for explanations. Was this an illusion? A hologram? Or something alive? Something more intelligent than anything humanity had encountered? But then her lips moved, and the voice that emerged was unmistakably human. "You have come," she said. There was no accent, no distortion, just words that resonated in his mind. "I have waited for someone like you." Daniel blinked. His training did not prepare him for this. I don't understand," he said. "Who are you?" "I am the one they call the Queen," she replied, her voice calm but carrying authority that made him want to bow instinctively. "For centuries, my people have waited for a choice that never came. And now it has found you." He shook his head. "You mean me? A human?" "Yes," she said, stepping closer, the light around her swirling like water. "I have watched your world, your courage, your compassion, and your will to act when others hesitate. You are the only one capable of facing what is to come." Daniel's mind reeled. He had faced dangerous missions, hostile alien environments, and unpredictable phenomena, but never anything like this. He was a single human in the heart of an alien empire, standing before a ruler who seemed to see through him, who spoke of waiting and choosing and a destiny he had never sought. "I can't leave Earth," he whispered, though even he knew the words sounded weak in the vast hall. "I have a life, people depending on me. I'm just an explorer." The Queen's gaze softened, and for a moment she seemed almost human. "Life and duty are complicated," she said, "but the universe does not wait for hesitation. The choice is before you. Will you take it, or will you leave everything to crumble?" Daniel swallowed hard. The weight of her words pressed down on him. He had left behind families, friends, even missions he had trained for. Yet he had never been asked to decide something so enormous. His mind flashed to the stories of empires rising and falling, of civilizations lost to fear or indecision. Could he bear the responsibility of saving an entire alien world? Could he even survive what lay ahead? He took a step forward, drawn not just by curiosity, but by a strange pull he could not explain. Her eyes seemed to hold a promise, or maybe a challenge. Daniel felt a rush of fear and excitement, a sense that the rest of his life, or perhaps all of humanity's future, and depended on this moment. "I will try," he said finally, his voice trembling but firm. He did not know what he was committing to, only that standing still was no longer an option. The Queen smiled, a slow, luminous expression that lit the room more than the walls themselves. "Then you will see," she said. what it means to be more than human, to face what no one else can. Your journey begins now. And in that moment, Daniel realized there was no turning back. The stars outside seemed to pulse in response, and the citadel, vast and silent for centuries, acknowledged the arrival of a human who would change everything. The citadel hummed around Daniel, a quiet energy that seemed to breathe with his every step. He followed the queen through hallways that twisted like living things, their walls shimmering with light that shifted with his movements. Each corridor seemed endless, yet it led him closer to her presence, closer to a truth he could barely comprehend. They reached a large chamber, circular and open to the stars. The floor reflected the cosmos and the ceiling vanished into nothingness. Daniel felt small, insignificant. Yet the queen's presence made him feel watched in a way that was not threatening but profound. She stopped at the center, her eyes fixed on him. "I will speak plainly," she said. "You are not here merely as an explorer. You are here because I need you in a way no one else can provide." Daniel hesitated. "Need me for what?" The queen's gaze softened. She stepped closer, and though she was taller and more powerful than any human could be, there was a gentleness in her movements that drew him in. "My people are lost," she said. "My empire has existed for millennia, bound by tradition and law. We waited for centuries for a leader who could bring change, someone who could balance wisdom with courage. I have seen humanity, and I have seen you. You possess what we lack. That is why I need you." Daniel's mind struggled to keep pace. He had trained for exploration, survival, and diplomacy, but never had he been confronted with such a request. It was not just leadership she asked for. It was partnership, trust, and something even more intimate. "And you want me to lead your people?" he asked cautiously. She shook her head. "Not merely to lead, to stand beside me, to be my partner in the way no other has been. I want you to be my husband, Daniel." The words hit him like a shockwave. Husband. He blinked, certain he had misunderstood. "You want me to be your husband?" "Yes," she said, unwavering. "It is not a demand of politics or power. It is my choice. It is my truth. You are the one I have waited for, the one capable of understanding the burdens I carry, the one who can help me rebuild what has been broken for centuries." Daniel felt a mix of disbelief and confusion. This was beyond any exploration, beyond any human experience he had imagined. He had expected to find signs of alien life, perhaps a new civilization, maybe even danger. But not this. Not an entire empire's hope resting on him, and certainly not the intimate confession of a being who had watched humanity from afar. "I don't know if I can," he said honestly. "I'm just a human. I'm not ready for this. I don't even know if I could fit into your world." The queen stepped closer, her silver skin glowing softly. "It is not about fitting into a world. It is about courage and choice. You have the heart of a human, and that is what we need. Your presence alone can inspire hope. You may not see it yet, but the potential is within you." Daniel looked down at his hands, feeling the weight of the impossible. His life on Earth had been ordinary in comparison. Missions, training, exploration. He had faced danger, yes, but this was different. This was about trust, about love, about carrying the weight of an entire civilization and stepping into a role that seemed unreal. "I can't just leave everyone behind," he whispered, thinking of the people on Earth, the colleagues, the friends, and the life he had known. "If I go, I may never come back." The queen's expression was gentle but firm. "No one can force you. The choice is yours. But understand this, if you leave, my people may fall. Our empire may collapse. You have been chosen because you are capable of more than you imagine. You have the strength to change the fate of countless lives." Daniel swallowed hard. He could feel the truth in her words, the seriousness of the responsibility. Yet he also felt something else. A pull he could not explain, a strange warmth that seemed to reach into him. It was not just duty. It was something deeper, something personal. "Why me?" he asked finally, his voice trembling. "Why a human?" The queen smiled faintly, a light in her eyes that was both sad and hopeful. "Because I have seen the courage in your kind, a courage that does not bend under fear. I have seen the compassion that can unite and inspire. And I have seen in you the spark that can ignite what has long been dormant in my people. You are the one who can stand beside me, not as a servant but as a partner, as someone I can trust with all that I am." Daniel's heart pounded. The weight of the choice slid down on him like gravity, and yet he felt an unexpected clarity. This was more than adventure. This was a call to something greater than himself. The stars outside seemed to reflect his own uncertainty and excitement, a mirror of the vast unknown that lay before him. He looked at the Queen and saw not just a ruler, but a being who had waited for him across time and space, someone who had seen his potential even before he had. The pull within him grew stronger, a mixture of fear, awe, and an unexplainable connection. I need time, he said finally, though he knew the answer would shape everything. This is too much to decide at once. The Queen nodded. Take the time you need, but remember that every moment counts. My people, my empire, and perhaps even your own destiny await your choice. I will wait, Daniel, but the path is yours to walk. As he stepped back, Daniel realized that nothing would ever be the same. He had come seeking discovery, but he had found a responsibility that stretched across galaxies, a truth that demanded courage beyond imagination, and a connection that he could not yet name. The universe felt larger, more complex, and infinitely more personal than he had ever known. Daniel spent hours walking through the silent corridors of the Citadel, his mind spinning with the Queen's words. Every detail of the place amazed him. Walls alive with moving patterns, floors that reflected the stars, and whispers of history embedded in the very air. Yet no matter how beautiful it was, he could not escape the weight of the decision before him. To accept her offer was to leave everything he knew behind, to abandon Earth, his friends, his home, and all that made him human in the world he had always lived in. He tried to imagine the life she offered, a place of power, knowledge, and responsibility beyond anything humanity had ever known. Standing beside the Queen, guiding a civilization on the brink of collapse, facing threats he could not yet even see. He felt both excitement and fear. The pull toward something extraordinary competed with the loyalty he felt toward the life he had built on Earth. Daniel's thoughts were interrupted by a soft sound behind him. He turned to see the Queen approaching. Her movements were graceful, her expression calm yet filled with something he could not name. You are thinking too much, she said gently. The choice is not about what you leave behind, but what you can create. I don't know if I can, Daniel admitted. I've never done anything like this before. I've never led anyone, let alone an entire empire. I'm just a human in your world, your people. It's all so vast. I don't even know if I belong here. The Queen's eyes softened and she stepped closer. Belonging is not about where you come from. It is about courage, determination, and the willingness to act when the world needs you most. I have watched you, Daniel. I have seen the way your mind works, the way you face fear and make choices even when the outcome is uncertain. That is why I chose you. Daniel swallowed hard. Her words were powerful, but the fear inside him remained. He wanted to run back to the safety of his ship, back to the familiar stars he had always known. Yet he could not deny the strange connection he felt to her, a sense that she understood him in ways no human ever had. Before he could respond, a sudden vibration shook the Citadel. The light along the walls flickered and distant alarms echoed through the halls. Daniel's heart jumped. What is happening? He asked, instinctively reaching for the Queen's hand. Not all accept change easily, she said, her voice calm but firm. Some of my people do not want a human to stand beside their queen. They will test you. They may try to stop you, but do not fear. This is the first step of your journey. If you survive it, you will understand the strength that lies within you. The words sent a chill down Daniel's spine. He had expected danger in space. Asteroid fields, hostile planets, unknown species, but nothing like this. The danger was not just physical. It was political, cultural, and deeply personal. His presence alone threatened centuries of tradition, and some would see him as an intruder or a threat to the very empire he was being asked to help lead. Moments later, the Queen led him to a massive chamber, its walls engraved with symbols that seemed to pulse with energy. Here she explained the challenges ahead. He would face tests not only of strength but of judgment, compassion, and courage. Some tests would be simple, others unimaginable. Every action he took would be scrutinized, every decision weighed against the survival of a civilization. Daniel's stomach twisted. He had trained for physical survival, for exploration, for diplomacy, but nothing had prepared him for this. Nothing had prepared him to feel the weight of millions of lives resting on his shoulders, or the eyes of a being who had confessed she trusted him above all others. Can I even do this? He whispered to himself, his voice barely audible in the vast chamber. The queen turned toward him, her gaze steady. "You can," she said simply. "I have chosen you because I believe in what you are capable of. But belief alone is not enough. You must act and you must decide. Courage is not the absence of doubt. It is the decision to move forward despite it." Daniel nodded slowly, feeling a mixture of fear and resolve. For the first time, he began to see that his journey was not just about leaving Earth or accepting a title. It was about discovering the strength within himself, about realizing that he could face trials no human had faced before and survive. Suddenly, a figure appeared at the edge of the chamber, cloaked in shadow. Daniel tensed. The queen's expression hardened. "This is your first test," she said. "These are the dissenters, those who cannot accept what is new. They will try to break your spirit. Remember your courage and remember that you are not alone. Stand with me and you will survive." The shadow moved closer and Daniel could see the glint of weapons in the dim light. His heart pounded, but he no longer thought of fleeing. The fear remained, but beneath it was a growing certainty. He would not fail. Not when so much depended on him. Not when the queen had placed her trust in him. As the figures advanced, Daniel took a deep breath, feeling the energy of the citadel around him, the presence of the queen beside him, and the weight of a decision that could change everything. In that moment, he realized that leaving Earth was no longer a question. He had already chosen. He would stand. He would fight and he would face the challenge, no matter what it demanded. The first test had begun, and Daniel knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The shadowy figures advanced toward Daniel, their movements swift and coordinated. They were taller than humans with sharp, glimmering weapons that seemed designed to intimidate as much as to harm. Daniel's heart raced, but he remembered the queen's words. Courage is not the absence of doubt, it is action despite it. He clenched his fists and squared his shoulders, refusing to step back. The queen raised her hand and a wave of energy rippled outward. The dissenters paused, blinking against the sudden glow that filled the chamber. Daniel could feel the raw power emanating from her, a strength built over centuries, yet she did not strike them down. She wanted him to face this moment, to understand the stakes, and to act as more than just a visitor in her world. One of the dissenters stepped forward, pointing a blade at him. Daniel realized quickly that this was no ordinary fight. It was a test of judgment and courage. He needed to move, to act decisively, but without harming unnecessarily. He remembered the stories of human heroes, of soldiers and explorers who had survived against impossible odds. He had never believed himself a hero, but now he had to try. He raised his hands, signaling that he would not attack. The dissenters hesitated, murmuring among themselves. Daniel's heart pounded. Could he convince them that he was not their enemy, even as he stood as a stranger among them? The room seemed to close in around him, and every instinct screamed that any wrong move could end in violence. The queen's voice cut through the tension, calm and commanding. "Do not fear them," she said. "They test you because they doubt. Show them who you are." Daniel took a deep breath. He stepped forward slowly, his eyes meeting those of the leader. There was suspicion there, anger, and something else, curiosity. He spoke, his voice steady despite the fear. "I do not come to take from you or to rule without reason. I am here to learn, to understand, and to stand with you. Your people are your strength, and I would not undermine that." The chamber fell silent. The dissenters exchanged glances, unsure how to respond. Slowly, the leader lowered the weapon, his posture relaxing just enough to show hesitation rather than hostility. Daniel realized that the first step in earning trust was not combat, but respect. One of the dissenters moved forward, extending a hand. "If you survive what comes next, perhaps you will be worthy of her trust," the figure said, their tone cautious but not unkind. "But understand this, many have tried and failed. They believed courage alone could protect them, and they were wrong." Daniel nodded. "I understand. I will do my best." His words were simple, but they carried weight. He knew that action would matter more than words in the moments ahead. The queen's eyes glimmered with approval. She had not intervened beyond the initial warning because she needed him to learn, to test himself against those who opposed change. Daniel could feel a shift in the air, a recognition that his presence mattered, that he was no longer just a human visitor but someone who could influence the fate of this empire. Suddenly, another chamber door opened behind the dissenters. A wave of figures poured in, faster and more coordinated than before. Daniel's heart jumped. This was no ordinary test, it was a trial of endurance, judgment, and composure under pressure. The Queen moved to his side, her hand brushing his shoulder in silent reassurance. "Stand with me, Daniel. Trust yourself as I trust you." He drew a deep breath and squared himself. He realized that fear could not control him. He would face whatever challenge came, not only to prove himself to them, but also to prove to himself that he could rise above doubt. The dissenters advanced again, this time testing his reactions. He moved quickly, deflecting attacks with careful precision rather than brute force, showing skill, composure, and understanding of the delicate balance between action and restraint. Hours seemed to pass, though the chamber's energy made time feel fluid. Daniel felt exhaustion creeping in, but he refused to falter. Every strike he avoided, every movement he made was a lesson in resilience. The dissenters watched closely, their attacks slowing as they measured him, assessing whether he could endure the trials of leadership. Finally, the leader of the dissenters raised a hand, signaling an end. Daniel stood, breathing heavily but unbroken, sweat and effort marking his determination. The chamber was silent except for the echoes of his own heartbeat. The Queen looked at him, her eyes radiant with pride. "You have begun to understand what it means to stand beside me. You faced doubt, fear, and hostility, and you did not fail. This is only the first step, Daniel. There will be more trials, but you have proven that courage and judgment can guide even the most uncertain path." Daniel nodded, feeling a mixture of relief and resolve. The danger had not passed entirely, but he now understood that trust, courage, and wisdom mattered as much as physical strength. The dissenters receded, leaving him standing with the Queen at the center of the chamber, no longer merely a visitor but someone who had begun to earn his place in this alien empire. For the first time, Daniel felt a spark of certainty. He did not yet know the full extent of the challenges ahead, but he knew one thing clearly: he would face them, not alone but with the Queen by his side. Learning what it truly meant to rise above fear and doubt, after the first confrontation with the dissenters, Daniel felt the weight of the citadel pressing down on him more than ever. He had passed the initial test of courage, yet the Queen had warned him that his journey was far from over. Each step through the glowing corridors felt heavier now, as though the very walls expected him to prove himself at every turn. The alien architecture, so alive with shifting patterns and light, mirrored the challenge within his own mind. The Queen led him to a chamber unlike any other he had seen. It was vast, circular, and empty, save for a single pedestal at its center. Strange symbols glowed along the walls, pulsing with a rhythm that seemed almost like a heartbeat. Daniel stepped carefully, feeling a sense of awe and fear in equal measure. The Queen's voice broke the silence. "This is your next trial. It is not of combat, but of the mind and spirit. Many have failed here, unable to face what lies within themselves." Daniel swallowed hard. He had faced fear outside, against weapons and enemies, but this was different. This was a challenge of understanding his own limits, of confronting the parts of himself he usually ignored. "What do I have to do?" he asked. The Queen did not answer with words. Instead, she raised her hand and the pedestal began to glow. A vision appeared above it, shifting and changing. Daniel saw himself, but not as he knew himself. He saw moments of doubt, mistakes he had made, choices he feared he could not live with. He saw the people he had left behind, their faces filled with worry, with hope, with the quiet expectations he had carried with him for so long. He staggered back slightly. The vision was overwhelming, showing every failure, every fear, every regret he had ever hidden. Daniel felt panic rise, the pull of the familiar and safe calling him back to Earth, away from the trials of this alien world. But then he remembered the Queen's words, "Courage is acting despite doubt." He clenched his fists, forcing himself to step forward. "I am here," he said to the vision, his voice steadying. "I will face this." The vision shifted. Now he saw himself not as a weak human, but as someone capable, someone who could endure, someone who could rise above fear. The mistakes remained, but they were no longer chains, they were lessons. He realized that the trial was not about erasing fear, but about understanding it, accepting it, and moving forward in spite of it. Daniel's hands trembled slightly as he reached out toward the glowing pedestal. As he touched it, the visions intensified. He saw the Queen struggling, the weight of her empire pressing down and the people she cared for depending on someone she believed could rise to the occasion. He saw the dissenters, the shadows of rebellion, and the countless lives that would be affected by his choice. He realized that this trial was a reflection of reality. The burdens he would bear, the decisions he would have to make, the courage he would need every day. The chamber grew still. The visions faded, leaving Daniel alone with the glowing pedestal. He was breathing heavily, but a strange calm settled over him. He understood now that fear was not a weakness, and doubt was not failure. They were reminders of what was at stake, signals to guide his choices rather than chains to hold him back. The Queen stepped closer, her eyes soft with pride. "You have begun to see yourself clearly, Daniel. Strength is not the absence of fear, nor is wisdom the absence of doubt. True power lies in understanding both and choosing to act anyway. You have passed this part of the trial, but there is more ahead. Every decision will matter. Every action will shape the future of this empire." Daniel nodded. He felt exhausted, but also a spark of determination he had never known before. He realized that he was beginning to understand the magnitude of the role he was stepping into. It was not simply about standing beside the Queen. It was about standing for her people, for the future, and for the hope that he could make a difference in a world not his own. As he followed the Queen out of the chamber, the glow of the walls seemed to pulse in acknowledgement, as if the citadel itself recognized the progress he had made. Yet the air was still heavy with tension. Daniel knew that trials would only grow more difficult. There would be enemies he had not yet seen, choices he was not yet prepared to make, and challenges that would test every part of him. But for the first time, he felt ready. Not because he was fearless, but because he understood that courage was a choice, made again and again in the face of impossible odds. He had seen the strength within himself, and it had given him the resolve to continue, to endure and to rise. The Queen's hand brushed his shoulder gently, a reminder that he was not alone. "Your journey has only begun," she said. "But you are already proving that you are more than capable. The Empire needs you, and I believe in what you can become." Daniel looked up at her, and for the first time, he felt the weight of destiny, not as a burden, but as a challenge he was willing to accept. The trials ahead were uncertain, the dangers real, but he no longer felt small or powerless. He was a human in an alien world, standing at the threshold of something extraordinary, and he was ready to step forward. The citadel shook violently as alarms blared through the endless halls. Daniel's heart raced as he ran alongside the Queen, her glowing figure moving with the elegance of someone who had ruled for centuries. Outside the grand windows he could see ships descending, dark and armed, cutting through the void with deadly precision. The uprising had begun, and there was no time for hesitation. "They've chosen to attack now," the Queen said, her voice steady but urgent. "The dissenters have rallied forces loyal only to themselves. They will try to take the citadel by force." Daniel nodded, gripping a rail as the floor trembled beneath them. Fear surged, but it was now tempered with determination. He had faced tests of mind, courage, and judgment, but this was different. This was real danger. Lives were at stake, and action could not wait. The first wave of rebels poured into the halls, their weapons flashing with deadly light. Daniel instinctively moved forward, following the Queen's lead. Her powers flared around her like liquid light, deflecting attacks and protecting him. But she did not fight alone. She needed him to act, to prove that a human could stand in the heart of alien warfare and endure. Daniel ducked as a strike came toward him, rolling to the side and using his instincts to push a small group back. He had never fought alongside anyone like this before. The Queen moved with him, a dance of strength and precision, her every action guiding his, teaching him in the chaos. Each moment demanded focus, courage, and quick thinking, and Daniel felt himself rising to meet it. In one hallway, a group of rebels cornered them, their weapons forming a deadly wall. Daniel's pulse surged. He knew the Queen could have destroyed them in an instant, but she held back, trusting him to act. Summoning every lesson he had learned in the trials, he leapt forward, using the environment to his advantage, deflecting attacks and creating space for the Queen to move. Every strike he dodged, every calculated step, brought a sense of clarity. This was not just survival. It was understanding what it meant to fight together, to be a partner, not just a follower. One of the rebel leaders shouted commands, rallying the attackers. Daniel felt a chill as he recognized the determination in their eyes. These were not ordinary enemies. They were desperate, convinced they were protecting their legacy by destroying him. But the Queen's hand brushed his shoulder, and he felt the calm in her confidence. "Do not let fear rule you," she whispered. "Stand with me and we will endure." Daniel's fear transformed into resolve. He moved faster, striking with precision, blocking attacks where necessary and protecting those who were caught in the chaos. The queen fought beside him, her power radiant and unstoppable, yet she allowed him to be an equal, to take action, to prove himself. For the first time, Daniel felt the bond between them, a connection built on trust, courage, and shared purpose. Hours, or perhaps minutes, passed in a blur of movement, light, and strategy. The rebels were powerful, but their coordination faltered against the Queen's guidance and Daniel's human ingenuity. They fought with instinct and determination, surprising the enemy with moves no one expected. Daniel realized that he had changed. He was no longer the uncertain explorer who had stepped into the citadel days ago. He was a human standing beside a queen, facing overwhelming odds and making a difference. At the heart of the citadel, Daniel and the queen finally faced the main rebel leader. The hall trembled as the leader raised a blade that shimmered with deadly energy. Daniel's pulse thundered, but he remembered everything he had learned, the lessons of courage, self-understanding, and partnership. He stepped forward with the queen, ready to face whatever came. The queen's eyes softened as she spoke, her voice carrying across the hall. "This is the moment of truth, not just for him but for us. Together we can endure." Daniel nodded, feeling a surge of clarity and strength. He moved in tandem with the queen, anticipating the leader's attacks, using every skill and instinct he had gained. They were unstoppable as a team, each covering the other, each move precise and deliberate. The leader faltered under their combined strength, unable to break the bond between human and queen. Finally, with a coordinated effort, Daniel and the queen disarmed the rebel leader. The hall fell silent, the remaining dissenters pausing, unsure how to proceed. The queen stood beside Daniel, her hand brushing his shoulder in silent acknowledgement. "You have proven yourself," she said softly, "not only to me but to all who doubted you. You are no longer merely human in this empire. You are its strength, its hope, and its partner in every way that matters." Daniel's chest heaved, sweat dripping down his face, but he felt a sense of triumph and purpose he had never known. He looked around the hall at the rebels frozen in hesitation and realized that the human beside the queen had made a difference. He had faced fear, chaos, and rebellion, and he had not faltered. The queen turned to him, her eyes glowing with pride and something deeper, something personal. "This is only the beginning, Daniel," she said. "But today you have shown what it means to be courageous, to fight not just for yourself but for a people who need you. Together we can face anything." Daniel nodded, feeling the truth of her words in his bones. The uprising had been fierce, but it had shown him what he was capable of, what humans could achieve even in a world not their own. He realized that he had earned his place, not by chance but through courage, wisdom, and unwavering determination. And as the last of the rebel forces retreated, Daniel understood that his journey had changed him forever. He was no longer just an explorer. He was a human who had stood beside a queen, who had faced impossible odds, and who had begun to shape the future of an entire empire. The last of the rebel forces had retreated into the dark corridors of the citadel, leaving the halls silent except for the hum of the structure itself. Daniel stood beside the queen, his chest heaving from the battle, his body bruised and tired, yet his mind was clearer than ever. He had faced doubt, fear, and outright hostility, and had survived. He had proven not only to the queen but to the empire that he was worthy of standing beside her. The queen's eyes glimmered with a mix of pride and relief. "The uprising is over for now," she said softly. "But the work is far from finished. Your actions today have shown the people that courage and wisdom can come from unexpected places. You have earned their respect in ways words alone could not achieve." Daniel looked around at the citadel, at the alien architecture and the glowing symbols that pulsed with life. He realized that the building itself had seemed to recognize his journey, responding to his courage as if the walls themselves were alive. The human he had been when he first arrived no longer existed. He was someone different now, shaped by trials, danger, and trust. The queen led him to a balcony overlooking the central city. From there, Daniel could see the citizens emerging from hiding, watching cautiously as their ruler stood beside a human. Many still whispered among themselves, doubt lingering in their eyes, but others looked on with awe. They had witnessed Daniel fight, lead, and endure, and the example had begun to shift their hearts. A soft breeze carried through the balcony, And Daniel took a deep breath, letting the weight of the moment settle around him. He understood now that leadership was not about power or authority alone. It was about action, responsibility, and the willingness to stand when others faltered. The Queen had trusted him, and he had not failed. She turned to him, her gaze holding his. "I made a choice when I asked you to stand with me," she said quietly. "It was not a test of love or devotion at first, though it has become that. I chose you because you could endure what others could not. And now, after everything, I know that my choice was right. You are more than human. You are my equal, my partner, and my strength." Daniel felt a warmth spread through him he had never known. The bond between them had grown through trials, through shared danger and understanding. He realized that the pull he had felt since the moment he entered the Citadel was no illusion. This was real, and it was rooted in mutual respect, courage, and a deep connection neither could deny. I never expected this," he said, his voice low but steady. "I thought I was just a visitor, an explorer passing through. But now, I see that everything led me here. I can't imagine standing anywhere else." The Queen smiled, her luminous form radiant in the fading light. "Then you will stand with me not as a visitor, but as my chosen partner. Together we will guide this empire into a new era, a future shaped by courage, understanding, and unity." The citizens below began to step forward, their initial hesitation giving way to recognition and respect. They had witnessed a human endure trials designed to break even the strongest alien minds, and they saw the Queen's trust in him as proof that he belonged. Whispers of approval grew louder, and slowly they bowed, acknowledging the bond between human and Queen, a partnership that promised stability and hope. Daniel looked at the Queen and felt a profound sense of purpose. Leaving Earth had seemed impossible, a sacrifice he could not bear. Yet standing here after trials, battles, and moments of doubt, he understood that some paths were meant to be walked, even if they were unimaginable at first. By leaving behind the familiar, he had discovered a destiny larger than himself, a chance to change the future of an entire civilization. The Queen reached out, taking his hand, and Daniel felt a surge of calm strength. Together they faced the rising sun of a new day over the Citadel. The glow of the towers reflected in their eyes, not as rulers imposing power, but as partners embracing responsibility, courage, and hope. "I have waited for someone like you for centuries," she said quietly, almost to herself. "And now, you are here, and we will build something new together." Daniel squeezed her hand. "I will not fail you," he said, feeling the certainty of his words in every fiber of his being. "We will face whatever comes together." Above the city, the stars sparkled as if acknowledging the dawn of a new era. The Citadel, once a symbol of isolation and fear, now stood as a beacon of unity. Daniel realized that he had not just survived, he had become part of a story larger than himself, a story of courage, partnership, and the power of choice. As the first rays of light touched the Citadel, the Queen and Daniel stood side by side, facing the future. The people, inspired by their strength, began to rally around them, ready to embrace change and hope. In that moment, Daniel understood that leaving behind everything he had known was not loss, it was transformation. He had found a place where his courage mattered, where his choices shaped the destiny of millions, and where the love and trust between two very different beings could create something extraordinary. The new dawn had come, not just for the Empire, but for the human who had dared to stand with an alien queen, and for the queen who had dared to believe in him. Together, they would guide their world into a future no one could have imagined, proving that courage, trust, and partnership could overcome even the greatest of challenges.